You've probably seen a Tesla today. Maybe you've ridden in one. Maybe you've stood in a parking lot staring at the door handles, wondering how they work. But here's what almost nobody realizes. For most of its existence, Tesla made more money from something you can't see or touch than it did from the car sitting in your driveway. Here's the contradiction at the heart of this company. Tesla spent over a decade selling cars at margins that would make a normal automaker panic, building factories that bled cash by the billions, all while becoming the most valuable car company on Earth, worth more than Toyota, Ford, and GM combined at various points. A company that nearly went bankrupt in 2008 and again flirted with collapse in 2018 somehow turned into a trillion-dollar valuation machine. That only makes sense once you understand that Tesla was never really just a car company. It was a data, software, and energy company wearing a car company's clothes. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Tesla actually turns a profit. And it's not primarily from the sticker price of the vehicle. You'll see the invisible revenue stream regulators created that quietly funded Tesla's early survival. You'll understand the manufacturing obsession that let Tesla undercut legacy automakers on margin. You'll see the operational machinery, from gigafactories to direct sales, that most car buyers never think about. And you'll see exactly why, even with all of this, Tesla has come dangerously close to collapsing more than once. Let's look at how this model plays out across scale. At the smallest tier, you have Tesla circa 2012, a single factory in Fremont, California, producing around 3,100 Model S units that entire year, running on razor-thin cash reserves and constant fear of missing payroll. Move up a tier, and you get Tesla in 2019 to 2020, the Model 3 era. This is the point where Tesla went from a niche luxury curiosity to genuine mass production, delivering roughly 367,500 vehicles in 2019 alone, a nearly 50% jump year over year, powered by the Shanghai Gigafactory coming online in under 12 months from groundbreaking to first deliveries. At the large operator tier, you get Tesla by 2023. Over 1.8 million vehicles delivered in a single year, across 4 vehicle lines, manufactured in factories on 3 continents: Fremont, Shanghai, Berlin-Brandenburg, and Austin, Texas. Then there's the flagship outlier, Giga Shanghai itself, which, at peak capacity, has been reported to produce close to 1 million vehicles a year out of a single facility, making it, by unit volume, one of the most productive car plants on the planet, and the source of the majority of Tesla's global exports at various points in the company's history. The range here is staggering, from a few thousand handmade luxury sedans in a leased factory to a nearly automated megasite exporting vehicles to dozens of countries. But the underlying mechanism connecting all of these tiers is the same, and it has almost nothing to do with what most people assume drives car company profit. But the price tag on the car is just the start. Here's why building electric vehicles at scale is brutally harder than it looks. First, battery supply. Lithium-ion cells are the single most expensive component in an EV, and for years, Tesla was structurally dependent on a handful of suppliers: Panasonic, CATL, LG Energy Solution. For cell production, meaning Tesla's margins, were partially hostage to global commodity prices on lithium, nickel, and cobalt. Second, manufacturing capital intensity. Standing up a single gigafactory has run into the multiple billions of dollars. Giga Berlin alone was reported to cost in excess of 5 billion euros before full production ramp. That's capital sunk years before a single vehicle generates revenue. Third, regulatory exposure. Tesla built an early and critical revenue stream by selling regulatory credits to other automakers who couldn't meet emissions targets, a stream that, while lucrative, is entirely dependent on policy that could shift or disappear. Relying on a revenue source that a change in law could erase overnight is not a stable foundation. It's a countdown clock. So here's the whole Tesla business model in one sentence. Sell hardware near cost or at thin margin, subsidize the gap with regulatory credits and software, and let manufacturing efficiency compound over time until the hardware itself becomes profitable on its own. Let's use a toy example first. Imagine you sell lemonade, but the city finds every other lemonade stand, that doesn't include a certain healthy ingredient, and pays you for every cup you sell that already includes it because you're ahead of the mandate. Suddenly, you're not just a lemonade seller. You're getting paid twice. Once by the customer, once by your competitor's fine, funneled through the city. That's roughly how zero-emission vehicle credits and other regulatory credit programs worked for Tesla. Automakers like Stellantis and General Motors, unable to hit emissions targets, purchased credits from Tesla to stay compliant. In 2020 alone, Tesla generated approximately $1.58 billion in regulatory credit revenue, and its net income that year was about $721 million. Strip the credits out, and Tesla's core automotive business was still operating close to break-even, or worse in some of those years. Now scale that toy example to the real mechanism. Manufacturing cost reduction. Tesla's obsession with vertical integration, casting entire rear underbodies as a single piece using massive gigapress machines instead of assembling dozens of stamped parts, cut part count and labor cost simultaneously. Tesla has stated its gigapress castings reduce the number of parts in certain vehicle sections from over 70 to fewer than 2, cutting both weld points and structural weight. Combine that with direct sales, no dealership network taking a cut of 5 to 10% per vehicle, and you get a structural cost advantage most legacy automakers structurally cannot replicate without dismantling decades-old dealer agreements. By 2022, Tesla's automotive gross margin, excluding regulatory credits, reached around 25% in its strongest quarters, a level competitive with, or exceeding, luxury automakers like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, despite Tesla selling vehicles at a lower average price point. That's the endgame of the model. What started as once as a credit-subsidized survival became genuine manufacturing-driven profitability. Here's the insider access most buyers never think about. Tesla's factories run on something called the unboxed process in newer plants like Austin. Instead of one long assembly line, where a defect anywhere shuts down the whole chain, vehicles are built in parallel modular subsections, then joined at the end, dramatically reducing downtime from single-point failures. Then there's the direct-to-consumer sales model itself. Tesla doesn't have franchised dealerships haggling over price. It has company-owned showrooms, often in malls rather than auto row locations, deliberately positioned to catch foot traffic from people who weren't shopping for a car that day. Pricing is largely fixed and adjusted centrally, sometimes multiple times in a single month, based on real-time demand data Tesla collects across its own sales app and website, something no legacy dealer network can coordinate in real time. And there's the software layer running quietly underneath everything. Every Tesla on the road is a data collection node, feeding driving footage and behavior back to train Tesla's self-driving neural networks. Meaning, the car you bought is also, in a sense, working a second job for the company that built it, generating training data that has real value regardless of whether that specific vehicle's full self-driving package was ever purchased. The clearest embodiment of this model's upside isn't a franchisee or independent operator. It's Tesla's own Shanghai operation and the executive who built it. Tom Zhu, a Tesla veteran who joined the company's China operations in 2014, oversaw the construction of Gigafactory Shanghai from a bare plot of land to first vehicle deliveries in roughly 10 months, a construction timeline legacy automakers typically measure in years, not months. Under Zhu's operational leadership, Giga Shanghai became so efficient that it was, at various points, Tesla's primary global export hub, shipping vehicles to Europe and Asia while undercutting the landed cost of vehicles built in Fremont. Zhu's success in Shanghai was significant enough that he was later promoted to oversee Tesla's entire global manufacturing and, eventually, sales operations, becoming one of the most powerful executives in the company outside of Elon Musk himself. The lesson embedded in that story. In this business model, the operator who masters manufacturing velocity, not just sales, charisma, is the one who ends up running the empire. Even inside a model this powerful, Two recurring failure patterns show up again and again among competitors trying to replicate it. First, mistaking hype for manufacturing readiness. Take Fisker Inc., which relaunched in 2020, promising a competitively priced electric SUV, the Ocean. Fisker raised capital through a SPAC merger, valuing the company at over $2.9 billion, but by 2023 was reporting production numbers in only the low thousands, against promised targets in the tens of thousands, plagued by software glitches and quality control failures. By June 2024, Fisker filed for bankruptcy. Its remaining inventory reportedly sold off at steep discounts, in some cases below $15,000 for vehicles that originally listed above $60,000. Second, underestimating capital burn during the ramp-up phase. Legacy-adjacent EV startup Lordstown Motors took over a shuttered GM plant in Ohio, with plans to build an electric pickup truck. The company burned through hundreds of millions in capital before producing only a small fraction of its promised units, and filed for bankruptcy in 2023, roughly 3 years after going public via SPAC at a valuation north of $1.6 billion. In both cases, the failure wasn't the idea. It was misjudging how much cash and how much manufacturing precision this model actually demands before it turns profitable. But Tesla's own history has a disaster chapter too, and it's worth remembering how close the company came to not existing at all. In late 2017 and through 2018, Tesla entered what Elon Musk publicly called production hell, trying to ramp Model 3 output. The company was manufacturing battery modules by hand in a tent structure outside the Fremont factory because automated lines weren't working reliably. Musk later said Tesla came within roughly a month of bankruptcy in 2018, burning through cash reserves so fast that the company's stock price swung wildly on rumors of insolvency. Musk was reportedly sleeping on the factory floor, and later stated Tesla was within single-digit weeks of running out of money. The company survived by hitting an 11th hour production target of 5,000 Model 3 vehicles in a single week, a target it had missed for months. Had that ramp failed, Tesla would very likely have joined the long list of automotive startups that ran out of runway before the manufacturing math ever worked in their favor. So, here's the resolution. To the paradox from the start of this video, Tesla wasn't profitable because it sold cars well. It survived its unprofitable years because of a regulatory credit system most car buyers never think about, and it became genuinely profitable only once manufacturing efficiency, vertical integration, and direct sales compounded enough to make the hardware business stand on its own. The math only works at extreme volume and manufacturing precision. Everything else, including the brand mystique, is noise layered on top of a very unglamorous, very literal factory efficiency story. Let's look at what the numbers actually look like at two very different scales of this model. Scenario 1, a single regional gigafactory style operation, roughly comparable to Giga Texas at initial ramp. Setup cost, approximately $5.5 billion in initial capital investment. Annual revenue at moderate production volume, roughly $6 billion, assuming around 125,000 vehicles a year at an average selling price near $48,000. Operating costs, including materials, labor, and energy, approximately $5.4 billion. Net profit, around $600 million annually. Payback period on the initial capital investment, roughly 9 years. Scenario 2, a flagship, fully ramped operation, comparable to Giga Shanghai at peak output. Setup cost, approximately $2 billion, reflecting lower per unit construction costs achieved through repeated Gigafactory design iteration. Annual revenue and IOM near maximum capacity, roughly $24 billion, assuming close to 950,000 vehicles a year. Operating costs, approximately $19.5 billion. Net profit, approximately $4.5 billion annually. Payback period, under 6 months. The gap between those two scenarios is the entire story of this business model in numbers. The same blueprint, the same underlying mechanism, but manufacturing velocity and scale turn a 9-year payback into a 6-month one. So next time you see a Tesla in a IHO parking lot, You're not just looking at a car. You're looking at the visible tip of a regulatory credit scheme, a manufacturing obsession, and a data collection network that's been quietly running in the background the entire time. If this broke down a business model you thought you already understood, subscribe. And let us know in the comments which number in this video surprised you the most.